We will do the reading of the COVID, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening. We greatly appreciate our staff, council, and residents adapting to our teleconference format due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight's meeting will be held under Minnesota State Statute 13D.021 that permits a public body to hold a meeting via telephone or other electronic means due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For members of the public, the meeting is being live streamed on the City of Wyoming YouTube page. The Wyoming City Council meeting will be recorded as part of the public record. After each agenda item is read and staff gives a report on the agenda item, I will call upon each council member individually if they have questions on that particular item. If you wish to make a motion or a second a motion, please state your name first. All votes on all items will be completed by a roll call to meet the standard for State Statute 13D.021. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Zerwas.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty for justice for all.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Zerwas. Mr. Linwood, we do not have anything for the anybody for the open forum, no letters, correct?
Nothing for the open forum, no, Mayor.
All right, so we will move on to approval of minutes. Number one, to consider approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for October 20th, 2020. If there are no comments or questions regarding those minutes, do we have a motion to approve?
Member Schilling, so moved.
Member Schilling makes the first motion. Do we have a second?
Member Luger will second.
Member Luger makes the second. Roll call, please. Member Zerwas?
Aye.
Member Yeager?
Aye.
Member Schilling?
Aye.
Member Luger?
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. So it does pass. Number two on our agenda, consider approving the minutes of the work session meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for October 26th, 2020. If there are no questions or comments, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved, Member Luger.
We have Member Luger making the first. Do we have a second?
Second, Member Schilling.
Member Schilling makes the second. Roll call, please. Member Zerwas?
Aye.
Member Yeager?
Aye.
Member Schilling?
Aye.
And Member Luger?
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. It does pass. We have no scheduled bids right now, but we do have a public hearing scheduled. And with that, we will need a motion to go into the public hearing.
So moved, Member Zerwas.
So we have Member Zerwas as a first motion and Member Schilling for a second.
Correct.
Awesome. All right. So again, we have to go around that room. So Member Luger.
Aye.
Member Yeager.
Aye.
Member Schilling.
Aye.
Member Zerwas.
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. So we are in a public forum, and I do have one letter to read. And this comes from Bruce Spangler, address 5983 258th Street. It reads, will reciprocity with other law enforcement agencies be addressed as others enter the city of Wyoming with body-worn cameras? Will there be a need for a memorandum of understanding with neighboring cities and county state agencies that we want them to follow our city policy while recording within our borders? I understand this question may not reside within the purview of the public or the policy document under review, but I would like to know if it's being addressed at some level. And that would be the only question we have, or do you want me to read what's in the
I think just for the record, Mayor, that we would note that we did receive considerable comment from the public, both via survey, both via social media, and that has been provided to the council to review in the council packet. and for the public if necessary for this item. So we are just calling that, we are noting that for the public record.
All right. So with that, are we going to address that right now? Do we want Chief Hoppy to address those questions?
Yeah, I certainly can, Madam Mayor and the council. Just as kind of a recap as to the purpose of the public hearing, as part of state statute, it requires an entity that's going to implement a body-worn camera program to not only post our policy draft for public comment, but also to have a public hearing in order for the council or members of the public to ask questions relative to the program prior to being implemented. And that's the purpose of the public hearing, is to really discuss any questions that the council or the public may have relative to our policy and how we intend to implement and use the system. And so based on the direction of the council, we posted for the public hearing. As part of that posting, on October 7th, we posted the draft policy for the body-worn cameras on our social media pages, on the city website. We also did a POCO survey, which the survey results have been added as part of the documentation for tonight's hearing. In addition to, we printed off a report of any and all comments that we received on our social media platforms, also for the council's review. And I'm going to say that we had very good civic engagement in this relative to receiving comments from the public, and to just kind of paraphrase most of them, really good support for the program and seeing the police department implement body-worn cameras. And we ran those surveys and collected that data from October 7th through the 27th. So 20 days that the public had an opportunity to review the policy, ask questions, or make comments relative to the policy. And so that brings us to today, which is our public hearing portion of it. And I will stand for any questions that council may have relative to the policy or comments made in the collection of that data.
Okay, so I will call on each council member. Again, it will be in relation to the questions or comments that were done on the survey. We'll start with Member Luker.
I have no questions at this time.
Okay, Member Yeager.
I do have questions. Will I have an opportunity to ask some afterwards?
Yeah, when we get out of the public hearing, we'll have time for that.
Okay. And will Mr. Spangler's question be answered?
I can certainly, if you want me to answer that now, I'm more than willing to do that. It's a good question relative to reciprocity or some sort of an agreement, mutual agreement or memorandum of understanding with other entities. We don't control the policies of other departments relative to the use or operations within the police department. And it would be an unrealistic expectation that every entity would know the descriptive details of other organizational policies that they assist in. But I will say that the camera systems, whether it be squad cameras or body cameras, are pretty much an industry standard at this point. And so we won't have a memorandum of understanding, but I do know that the agencies surrounding us, such as Lakes and North Branch and Chisago County, all in, and Forest Lake, are all in similar processes right now or have completed them. And we reviewed most of those policies and they are very similar to ours. But we certainly cannot dictate the conduct or the procedures of other organizations. Therefore, the answer is we will not have memorandums of understanding with other organizations to follow our policy when responding in our city.
Okay, Member Schilling.
I actually just have a statement. When I was reading through this, there was actually quite a lot of social feedback, and I thought a lot of it was very productive. I thought it was very supportive looking through the surveys. I really like the fact that people took time to go through this and read it and comment. I really appreciate that as a council member. And then just on a side note, there was quite a few humorous ones on here that were a little not so flattering, but it is social media, so that was all I had.
All right, Member Zerwas.
Not at this time.
All right, I think with that being said, I have no questions either. With that being said, do we need to have a vote to go out, go back into session and out of the public hearing? Okay, so we need a motion to go out of the public hearing, please.
Member Schilling, so moved.
And do we have a second?
Member Luger will second.
Member Zerwas, second.
So we got Member Luker as the second, and thank you, Council Member Zerwas. And okay, so we have to go roll call. So Member Zerwas,
Aye.
Member Yeager,
Aye.
Member Schilling,
Aye.
Member Luker,
Aye.
and Mayor Iverson is an aye. So we'll go into number 2, actually, of our agenda, which is to consider approving the minutes of the, oh, I'm sorry, number 3, to consider Wyoming Police Department Policy 2-8, a policy for body worn portable audiovisual recording devices. So Chief Hoppy, is there anything else you'd like to add to this?
No, I think the policy is pretty descriptive relative to how we will manage the system. And I guess more than anything, I just stand for questions if the council has any questions they want to ask or points of clarification.
Okay, so I know that Member Yeager stated that she has some questions, so we'll let her go first.
Okay, when you see a bystander filming the officers, in addition to turning on their camera, will the officers take any further action regarding these bystanders?
It depends on the nature of the interaction. And so if we're simply doing, say, walking through Bruce's Foods, that would not require them to activate their camera. If we're getting a call for service at Bruce's Foods, then they would activate the camera because we're going there to answer a call. But in the event that they come across a citizen or somebody in the public inadvertently and start up a conversation that turns towards something that would have evidentiary value, then the requirement is that they would activate their camera. So for instance, if the interaction starts out as simple, just community engagement, and then transitions to that person wanting to report a crime or an incident, then at that point it would have evidentiary value relative to an interview, and then the officer would activate the camera.
Okay, let me rephrase that a little bit. I was thinking more of a situation where the officers are engaged in an activity and there is a bystander filming the engagement. Will any action be taken to that regarding that bystander? Will they be required to identify themselves, or will they be approached by an officer?
That is actually not even relative to the body-worn camera policy, because if an individual has their own device and they're recording their own information, the information that they record or the filming that they record is not government data, it's not public data. Therefore, we don't control it. And the public, if it's in an open area and they're legally there and not interfering in the course of the duty of the officer, then we would have no reason to the officer to collect the individual or bystander's name or ask for video or anything else. So this policy or in the implementation of the body-worn camera system is really irrelevant in the nature of that particular scenario that you described.
Oh, okay, because my question arose when I looked at your definitions and saw that when a citizen is filming, it's considered adversarial. So I didn't know how far that would go.
So in the context of the terminology of adversarial, when it comes to criminal law and criminal procedure, adversarial means that there would be evidentiary value, meaning that if a person or bystander is going to record an incident that an officer is involved in, then we would consider that adversarial evidence, meaning that we would want to activate our body cameras as well so that we capture the entire event in preparation for any civil litigation or criminal event or officer complaint, so that we have a full capture of the incident, not just a partial or an edited portion that a citizen could later display as part of a complaint process. So from an adversarial, it doesn't mean a negative term. Adversarial in the context of the policy is relative to criminal procedure in the sense of, if we know that somebody is collecting video on us in the course of our duty, then we would want our officers to activate their cameras to ensure that we capture all data that we can use in the event that a secondary complaint or officer complaint or incident occurs, that we have collected as much evidence and retained it ourselves to ensure the accuracy of the event.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? From Councilmember Yeager?
Oh, no, thank you.
All right, Member Zeros.
Yeah, how about if they're gonna go into a private home, Chief Hoppy? When are you gonna activate, and why would you activate it going into somebody's private home?
So in the policy, it requires that they activate it at all times. So whether we're in public or whether we're in a private home, we would activate it regardless. And the purpose behind that is a number of things that we do. A great majority of what we do are in the privacy of persons' homes. And there's also a protection for them in their home, or a protection for the officer as well, as they engage in people, whether it be in public or in their home. The statutes are pretty clear relative to public data and what is or isn't public data relative to the body camera systems. So only the people that are subject of the data, I mean, subject within the video, can request it. And they only get that data that they're in. So they may not even get the whole cut of the video. They only get the portions that they're in. And they'll only get unredacted information if all parties within that video agree to have it released. Otherwise, we will be using our software to read act out other actors. But when we looked at this relative to recording, you know, from a transparency perspective and trust in the community, it's important that we set the standard as we're going to record everything. And we want to limit that window of opportunity or discretion by the officers when not to record, so that we continue to have that transparency and build that trust with the community, that it's less arbitrary.
Okay, I actually know the answer to that before I asked you the question, but I thought it'd be good information for those folks, citizens in the community that are listening on tonight's meeting. Thank you, Paul, Chief.
All right, Member Schilling?
Actually, I have no questions.
Okay, Member Luker?
I just have one question. It's just kind of a general wondering, how similar is our policy and how it's drafted and the wording of it to surrounding communities?
So the base core of our policy was actually drafted from the League of Minnesota's draft policy that was developed in conjunction with considerations of the state statutes on what is and what isn't public data and best practice recommendations. So I can say that there are some surrounding agencies that have since requested this policy to use as part of the draft of their policies. And I also looked at our surrounding agencies that already have policy developed under this to ensure that we're covering all of the same elements, and that when we are in those cities and vice versa, that there's a similar expectation by all of the officers on scene that we are acting prudently within kind of a coordinated response relative to collecting data and how we disseminate.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that was everybody. I have no questions. They've all been answered. So with that, we do need a motion to approve the Wyoming Police Department Policy 2-8, a policy for body-worn portable audiovisual recording devices. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Member Zerwas, move to approve.
All right, so we have Member Luker as a first, and we have Member Zerwas as a second. Roll call, please. Member Yeager.
Aye.
Member Schilling.
Aye.
Member Luker.
Aye.
Member Zerwas.
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. It does pass. We will move on to number 4, to consider an agreement authorizing a 5-year subscription contract with Axon Enterprises, Inc. to provide body-worn camera technology to the Wyoming Police Department. Chief Hoppy, you're going to add to this?
I am, Madam Mayor and Council. So the second step of this is really to authorize the body-worn cameras themselves and grant us authorization to move forward with the purchase of the equipment and start implementing hopefully in December by the time we take possession and whatnot. I think most of you saw the story that we did in the last week with the media relative to our donor who has stepped up to donate $10,500 for 2020 and then again in 2021 to help us with the implementation of the program. And so the subscription that we're engaging in with Axon is actually a really good system. It's all cloud-based, and so the data we don't store locally. It's all stored in Axon's servers, which is cloud-based on a secured government-approved server. The subscription not only provides us with the equipment, but also provides us with the technology to download it, to redact it, to sort it. It also has, through the backbone system of it, as you saw is in the policy, our data retention. So it has the capability of automating the retention periods and deleting it automatically based on how we classify the reports. It also has an auditing system in it, which is relative to statute that biannually we have to have the system audited to ensure that we're meeting state statute and policy relative to the retention and redacting of the data. So it's a very robust system. But it also allows us, to subscribe under like a lease agreement with the camera systems themselves, and that every 5 years those cameras are turned in and then upgraded as the technology continues to upgrade. So does our systems. And then at the end of the 5 years, we would enter into a new contract with them relative to, the cost, not of implementation, but the continued ongoing of cost to support the system. Part of this is not only to buy a camera for each of our licensed officers, because the cameras are specifically programmed to each individual officer, so that when we're looking at an incident and we have multiple viewpoints from different officers, that we can, because of the programming, they're all tagged with which officer camera that we're looking at. But part of this also, and it was important to me to get 2 other functionalities of this system. One, which is a holster sensor that in the event that the officer draws his weapon, it automatically activates the camera system. And secondly, it works similar with the taser. If the taser is removed from the holster and turned on, that action of itself automatically activates the camera system, so that we ensure that when those situations are most critical and they evolve quickly and sometimes unexpectedly, that we capture that. Part of this camera system also is that essentially it's always recording. The system is always recording, and it records in 30-second increments, meaning that it will record for 30 seconds and then it overwrites the previous 30 seconds. So every minute it kind of has a rolling 30-second data retention. And the reason it does that is when the officer activates the camera system, it actually goes back and captures the previous 30 seconds prior to activation, so that if something does happen, we can capture what happened that led the officer up to that point of activating the camera. So for in the instance of, an unexpected encounter where the weapon is drawn, it will activate the camera at the time of the draw of the weapon, but that actually captures the 30 seconds prior to that, so we can see any conduct that led up to it. So it's a very robust system, and we've looked at it as far as the retention periods on how the data is retained, the secured servers that are certified as government cloud servers that it can be stored on, the redaction capability of it, how the phone that we have with the officers interact with the camera for really good labeling and classification of the data as we get it. So it's a very robust system. And that's why we chose this particular system. But with that being said, the company's been really good about working with us and structuring the contract so that in 2020, our costs are $10,500, which is equivalent to what the Hallberg Family Foundation has committed as a donation to this program. So we would see a net zero cost in 2020. And then in 2021 and proceeding, there from out, the cost would be $7,276 per year to operate the system, taking into consideration, again, the $10,500 donation that we'll get from Hallberg's in 2021. So for the cost of $50,000, $58 for 5 years, $21,000 of that is being covered by the Hallberg Family Foundation. And then the contract would be renegotiated at the end of that 5-year period. So that cost includes the full implementation, the data storage, the server storage space, the read-acting software, the recovery software, the camera systems, and the accessories that go along. So it's fully encompassed of the program. And so what I'm looking for is authorization to enter into that subscription with Axon and then begin the implementation process, hopefully to be completed within the first week or two of December of 2020.
All right. So with council, we'll go around the room for questions. Let's start with Member Schilling.
I actually have no questions. Chief answered them all. Thank you, Chief.
All right, Member Zerwas.
I just have one question. Paul, when that data is collected and stored, how long do you keep that data?
So if we go back to the policy, it all is identified in the actual policy as appendix relative to data retention. And so the minimum data time is going to be 180 days. Statute requires minimum of 90 on some events. We're classifying it as a minimum of 180 days. And then the most it is under, officer involved shootings that result in death, that's an unlimited time. So we're going to hold those relatively indefinitely. And we can use that data. And so it all depends on how it's classified at the time of the event. The policy and statute allows for an individual that wants it saved beyond that 180-day or policy minimum to make a written request to extend the retention of the data for no more than an additional 180 days. And they can make continuous requests as long as those requests are made within that retention period. So if nobody makes a request and it's classified for a minimum of 180-day event, so for instance, a medical, at the end of the 180 days, the software automatically deletes the data from the server.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, Member Yeager.
Chief Harper, you mentioned that if the sidearm is drawn, the camera automatically goes on and then records 30 seconds before the camera actually goes on?
Yeah, it's a 30-second recovery from the time of activation, and that's for every time that we activate the camera. It will actually capture and make part of the record the 30 seconds prior to activation of the device.
All right, so like you said, it's anytime you activate the camera. So if a citizen is walking up to a police officer, they're being recorded 30 seconds before the police officer puts the camera on?
That is correct. And that 30-second retention period only records the visual. It does not record the audio. So it captures the video, but will not record the audio for that 30-second period prior to activation of the camera.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
All right, Member Luker.
I have no questions.
All right. And my only question, Chief Hoppy, would be why are we not capturing the audio that first 30 seconds as well?
That's a good question, and that's kind of an industry standard, and some of it is purely we don't necessarily want to hear our guys singing in the squad car. prior to activating the camera, and I'm serious about that. And so sometimes, it may be the radio traffic or just inadvertent comments that might be happening in the squad prior to hitting the camera. So there is a level of protection also for the officers that they can engage in the course of normal conduct even prior to the citizens, just in the squad car, for instance, and have those non-recorded conversations. But once they activate it, they know that at that point they're being recorded. And so for that purpose, it's going to grab the video, but not necessarily the audio. Because some of that is just really not evidentiary value. And we don't want to over intrude on our employees' right to have some, for instance, conversations that go back and forth, with each other prior to the activation of the camera. So what we call inadvertent conversations.
All right, great. I appreciate that. All right, so if there are no further questions, we do need a motion to approve the agreement authorizing the 5-year subscription contract with Axon Enterprises, Inc. to provide body-worn camera technology in the Wyoming Police Department. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve, Member Zerwas.
We have Member Zerwas as the first. Do we have a second?
Member Lugar will second.
Member Lugar is the second. Roll call, please. Member Yeager?
Aye.
Member Schilling?
Aye.
Member Lugar?
Aye.
And Member Zerwas?
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. It does pass. All right, so we're moving on to the consent agenda, which is number 5, 6, 7, and 8 on our agenda. Is there anyone that would like to pull any of those items for further questions or comments? Seeing a no to that, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Member Schilling, so moved.
Member Schilling is the first. Do we have a second? Mayor Iverson will make that second. Sorry, Member Lugar. I'll make that second. All right, roll call, please. Member Zerwas?
Aye.
Member Yeager?
Aye.
Member Schilling?
Aye.
And Member Lugar?
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. The consent agenda does pass. We're going to move on to reports. That would be number 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 on our agenda. Does anybody wish to pull an item from those reports for further discussion? Okay, seeing no on that, we'll move on to number 14, which is communications, Wyoming COVID Business Preparedness Plan Update. Ms. Dumas, is that you tonight?
It is. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of council, staff continues to monitor the situation of the COVID-19 pandemic in relation to how the city operations, how we can effectively do city operations safely, both for staff and for residents. And a part of that plan has involved kind of progressions of different policies as we've moved through the pandemic, learned more about the science behind it, how the virus travels. And we've included an overview in your packet of what some of the policies that staff currently practice as a part of our strategies for ensuring that we can be as safe as possible. And those have been working as well as they can. We have had some cases of COVID in our staff. However, we have not had an outbreak. So we are very positive about how we are moving forward. But there are a couple of policies that we've identified from other organizations that we think would be good additions to our practices. The first of those is having daily temperature checks for employees. This would be a practice that would just involve a very simple forehead scan for all employees when they start their workday to check their temperatures. This would then be recorded on a sheet for just kind of daily tracking for employees as a confirmation that they do not have a fever, which is one of the main symptoms of COVID-19. The second practice that we're proposing, we're already practicing in part of the city. The police department has implemented this in their practices. It's a fogging disinfection of all of our vehicles that are used by staff. So after an employee uses a vehicle, they would then do a fog inside, which is a antibacterial mist that kind of covers the inside of a vehicle and helps to kill any virus that could be left in the vehicle from the employee using that. We do currently limit our vehicles to a single employee at a time. However, sometimes employees do use a vehicle that was previously used by another employee. So this would just be an extra safety precaution to make sure that if there were an instance of somebody who was contagious using one of our vehicles, that we would make that as safe as possible for the next person who is using that vehicle. So those are two kind of proposals moving forward, and we just wanted to share that with council as our strategy and how we are continuing to look at the situation with COVID to make sure that we're providing the best service we can while making sure that our employees and our residents are staying safe. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thanks, Ms. Dumas. I have one question. I'm not sure who's going to be able to answer this. We were looking at, and I see on the agenda is our CARE Act's dollars to increase. Have we included that? Last meeting, we had a conversation about CARE Act's dollars or workshop. Are we including additional fogging supplies for this as we go forward?
That would be a part of the supplies that we would collect for the future to make sure that we could operate. Yes.
Great. Great. All right. Are there any other questions? I can go around the room. I'm just looking to see. Okay, Member Schilling.
I just have one question, Ms. Dumas. What do you guys determine as a temperature as far as, okay, let's say I came in and I'm 99.9. Is that considered fever to stay home, or?
We would use the CDC guidelines for what they consider a fever to be. That's the basis that we're using for our recommendations.
Yeah, because we, at the office, we started this and then we stopped it, but I'm not saying it's a bad practice, but I tend to run about 99 to 100 all the time because I just don't ever sit still. So I was just curious on if you guys are just following that guideline. So thank you very much.
All right, Member Luker, any questions?
No questions. I think these are both great ideas. Who gets to be the temperature taker?
You can self-administer. It's very simple. Yep.
All right, Member Zerwas?
No questions.
And Member Yeager?
The device used to take the temperature, is that calibrated at all?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I can confirm that. We have the devices at City Hall, so I can confirm that for council.
Yeah, because I went into a store. They told me I had like this abnormally low temperature where I shouldn't be on my feet. So, okay, thank you.
I think the ones that were purchased are a fairly good quality, but it's a good point, council member, that sometimes they're not that accurate. But I think these are a grade where I think they're calibrated and provide accurate information, where they weren't the bargain basement, but they were, I think, a reliable one based on the ratings and what we looked at when we purchased them. So I think they'll be calibrated and work appropriately, but we'll certainly monitor them if something seemed to be off.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Member Zeros, did I ask if you had any questions? Sorry.
Yes, I did. I don't have any questions.
All right, sounds good. So it looks like we can move on from there. We don't need to make any motion on it, so we can move on. Thank you, Ms. Dumas, for that presentation.
Thank you.
We'll move on to new business number 15, to consider resolution 20-11-99, a resolution approving a conditional use permit for Jan Hoppy for an automobile dealership at 24232 Greenway Avenue, Wyoming, Minnesota, 55092. Mr. Weck.
Madam Mayor and council members, Mr. Hoppy is a requesting the conditional use permit for an automobile dealership on Greenway Avenue. The only public comment we received was from the other dealership, Wholesale Enterprises. Their concern was just making sure that the same conditions that were placed on them when they opened will be placed on this dealership. And the 7 conditions that the Planning Commission are recommending and staff are the same conditions that were imposed on Wholesale Enterprises. I think the only additional one would be for parking lot striping, which would have been, that was a new use at that time, so he was going to have it striped anyway. So Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval of the conditional use permit with the 7 conditions listed in the resolution and the staff report.
All right, so around the room for questions, please. Member Schilling.
I actually do not have any questions. I was fine with the staff recommendations for approval.
Okay, Member Yeager.
No questions. Looks good to me.
Member Luger.
No questions.
Member Zerwas.
No questions.
All right, and I have no questions either, so we do need a motion to approve Resolution 20-11-99, a resolution approving a conditional use permit for Jan Hoppy for an automobile dealership at 24232 Greenway Avenue, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Do we have a motion to approve?
Member Luger will make that motion.
Member Luger makes the first. Do we have a second?
Member Schilling, second.
Member Schilling makes that second. Roll call, please. Member Zerwas.
Aye.
Member Yeager.
Aye.
Member Schilling.
Aye.
Member Luger.
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson, it is an aye, and it does pass. Congratulations, Mr. Hoppy.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much. Appreciate it.
All right, we move on to number 16, to consider the hiring of Travis Parsons for the Public Works Maintenance position at a wage of $27.31 an hour. Mr. Umjeld, are you going to be discussing that with us?
Yes, I will. Mayor Iverson and City Council members. The Public Works Department and Administration has completed the selection process of on a
He froze up.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was my internet or.
That was me in the last meeting. I kept the kids off tonight.
Chuck, can you hear us by any chance whatsoever? Mr. Linwood, do you want to go ahead and take it then while we're figuring this out?
Oh, you're on mute, Rob.
Thank you. If Mr. Olmsted comes back, we'll certainly let him jump in. As he was stating, the Public Works Department administration went through a process of putting out for advertisement for a maintenance worker 1 position. That position, as you council remembers, was resigned recently, and you approved and authorized that process to begin. Staff reviewed approximately 31 individuals for the position. There was first round interviews conducted on the top applicants, and from there, all the top applicants in the first round were brought back for second round interviews. And then from the second interviews, a top applicant was chosen by staff. And then background check and employment verification have all been completed on that. The top candidate for this position was Travis Parson. For this maintenance worker 1, Travis is currently employed by the City of Blaine Public Works Department and has been for the past 2 years. He works in the street department and is familiar with asphalt patching, paving, tree trimming, curb work, sign work, and snow plowing. Previously from that employment, he worked at an emergency apparatus maintenance and Peterson companies running types of machinery and also doing repairs on vehicles. He also has a Class B driver's license and has an associate's degree from Alexandria Technical College. Based on the qualifications, wage history, and work experience, staff is recommending the starting wage step for $27.31 per hour with a 6-month probationary period per the local 49ers union contract. With that, I can stand for any questions, or if Mr. Olmsted is with us, he certainly can, but it looks like he's not.
We'll go ahead with questions. Member Zerwas.
No questions. He sounds like a good candidate.
He does. All right, Member Luger.
I have no questions.
Member Schilling.
No questions. I just wanted to thank staff for running through all these applicants. I know that's a lot of work, so he looks like a wonderful candidate. I'm going to say welcome aboard, Travis.
Member Yeager.
No questions.
All right, and I have no questions either, but again, staff has been very busy interviewing for these two positions, so looking forward to a very stable staff, right? All right, so with that, we need a motion to approve hiring Travis Parson for the Public Works Maintenance position at a wage of $27.31 an hour. Do we have a motion to approve?
Member Zerwas, so moved.
Member Zerwas makes the first. Do we have a second?
Second, Member Schilling.
We have a second from Member Schilling. Roll call, please. Member Yeager?
Aye.
Member Schilling?
Aye.
Member Luker?
Aye.
Member Zerwas?
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. We look forward to having Travis Parsons start soon. All right, we will move to number 17 to consider resolution 20-11-100, a resolution ordering preparations of a feasibility report for the public improvements to all or portions of roadway identified in the 2021 street improvement project. Mr. Erickson, are you starting or is Mr. Linwood?
Mr. Erickson will take this. Mark, are you on mute?
I am. I had a phenomenal introduction there. My apologies. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. We're all very aware of the efforts to improve Wyoming's infrastructure, whether it be work sessions, road tours, pavement ratings to identify the existing condition of roadways every 3 years. We've done all those things, and the culmination of that was the development of a capital improvements plan. I have that plan on the screen that I'm sharing right now. We did discuss at a work session where we discussed maybe modifying that based on the COVID-19 and the effects that had on our state aid account. They're not offering the availability to advance encumber funds due to the fact that gas tax collected it was down substantially, and so their state aid account balance had gone into the red level, and that does not allow for state aid advances. And so we talked about moving out of the 2021 improvement project that's identified here in green on East Viking, and we talked about moving up the project that's identified in 2022. This area that I'm really highlighting here has been on the list for many years, and it just seems to keep sliding down and not being selected for the next project. I know that the city hall receives multiple calls on this, asking when this project is going to be improved, and Mr. Linwood can certainly attest to that if you'd like, but I know that they get regular calls regarding that. And so we're before you here this evening to discuss moving forward with the feasibility study. It's a process that we have been very familiar with, as we've been very successful at improving a number of roads over the last 5 years. A lot of improvements have been made. We certainly have a lot more to go. You can see the map here identifies really the next 5 years worth of improvements. And we know that we had to scratch off a lot of projects on there that just we knew we wouldn't be able to fund. So with this, we're looking at the 2022 project. I'm going to just change figures here just to really highlight the project area that we're discussing this evening. And it's 267th Street from Fenwick to Finley, 266th Street from Fenwick to Finley. And again, some of these areas are ones that do have some drainage issues that we do know that we need to address. Faraday Avenue from 267th to 266th, Finley from 267th to the south terminus, 266th, Forley Avenue, Foxborough, a couple of segments there, Freeport, and 267th from Freeport Avenue to its west terminus. And then lastly, Glen Oak Drive from 263rd to approximately 700 feet south of 262nd Street. So a pretty good sized project area. It is identified in the city's long-term plan. And so with that, we are asking for authorization this evening to move forward with the feasibility study. If you're inclined to do so, we will begin immediately with survey prior to snowfall. That's always helpful. We'll coordinate televising to make sure that there's not any issues with sanitary sewer. Working with Public Works on what water main infrastructure might need repairs, soil borings and cores, coordination with utility companies, a lot of those things, just to prepare for that first informational meeting with property owners that we normally do. So with that, I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
All right, I'm going to start with this. First, Mr. Linwood, I just want to ask this. Is there a way to, and maybe I'm missing it on the webpage, but a lot of questions were asked about our roads and when they're going to get done. Can we get this information if we go back to the first screen that Mr. Erickson shared with us where it had the different years on it? Is there any way we can get that shared on the website?
Certainly, absolutely.
That would be great. And then Mr. Erickson, we do know that we do our best job planning, right? Roads that we think need to be done. Unfortunately, we do have some cases that something comes up and has to take its place, correct?
Yeah, that's the case here that we've had in previous years where we've either had an emergency road blow up or some circumstance that moved a project up for some reason. Might have been development related or like I mentioned, we've had to slide things back in the past where we've had an emergency repairs associated with the roadway just due to the condition not being able to sustain just patchwork any longer.
All right, thank you. With that, I will go around the room and ask for questions. Member Zerwas.
Yeah, for 2020, and there's a lot of roads that could probably be milled and overlaid. I hope they're looked at strongly.
I agree with you, Councilman Zerwas, that's for sure. Any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, Member Yeager.
Okay, I thought that the original East Viking reconstruction project was going to be in conjunction with sewer upsizing and the MnDOT project.
Yeah, and so that's a good question. That first two blocks here will be completed in 2021 with that sewer upsizing project, and so those first two blocks will be completed with that improvement project.
Oh, okay. So we'll basically be doing almost two projects at once.
Yeah, and I think the timing of that is going to be such that this project will really need to be completed in advance of this project starting. With this being closed, there may be, we need to have an outlet for traffic, and that I presume that some of that may utilize some of the local roadways there, and so we're working with a lot of coordination on that right now and have meetings scheduled with Polaris to discuss access and things of that nature, and so. That they will not be able to occur immediately at the same time, but one following the other.
Okay. And then, at a work session, we talked about street projects being paid for pay as you go to get away from the bonding. So how are we proposing to pay for this project?
I think right now that's something that we'll have further conversations with the council about, but we did review late this summer into early fall a long-term plan that had identified that the first project could be actually paid in city funds that we had accumulated between our street fund and capital revolving fund. Most likely that's how staff would make a recommendation to the council for this, but we certainly have some time to talk about exactly the financing for this project, since that plan is still a draft and we haven't had a complete discussion with the council on that. But that would, I guess, going back to that was our draft discussion.
Okay.
And that would be something that we do include in the feasibility study, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Member Schilling.
I actually didn't have any questions, but Mayor, thank you. I was going to ask if we could put that estimated project replace date on our website, because I think that's a great tool. So.
All right, Member Luger.
I have no questions. I'm in favor of moving forward on this.
Awesome, and I had already asked my question. So we need a motion to approve resolution 20-11-100, resolution ordering preparation for a feasibility report for public improvements to all or portions of roadways identified in the 2021 street improvement project. Do we have a motion to approve?
Member Schilling, so moved.
So we have we have the first motion by member Luger, and we have a second by member Schilling.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Roll call. Member Zerwas?
Aye.
Member Yeager?
Aye.
Member Schilling?
Aye.
Member Luger?
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. So that's good news for the residents over there that we'll be able to share with them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Number 18, to consider policy 20-03, a policy for a virtual city meeting and public participation. And for those of us that are following along, that would be on page 109 of the packets. Mr. Linwood, are you starting with that, or will that be Ms. Dumas?
I'll be starting with that, Mayor. Council members, Mayor, council members, this is a discussion that largely stemmed from our October 20th meeting when we talked about the public participation in our meetings, as we had a public hearing tonight and we have future public hearings and just overall interaction as well. As you're aware, currently we are operating under Minnesota State Statute 13D-021, which allows a public entity to conduct meetings entirely in a remote status due to that COVID-19 pandemic. Currently, we are allowing the public to comment by simply giving written items to city staff. We have received phone calls at times, and then we have set up a way that they can participate, that we do advertise and have on our website by going to our website and actually filling out a form through our public hearings open forum, which we then receive that information and we provide that back to the council. With this policy, the addition being is that we would allow the actual members of the public to be allowed within the meeting to comment on potential agenda items or public hearings or open forums. Simply what we would do is we would still utilize that public hearings open forum form on our website, but then we would add an additional one to it asking if that individual would like to actually be present and speak during the meeting. From there, that individual, we would receive that notice, and then from there, city staff would reach out to that individual to get information from them via whatever it's a Zoom name or a phone number, and then provide them that credential to get into the meeting. This allows us to still allow the public to interact with us during these meetings, but also still allows some security and safety nets for both those individuals and the public, the city council and city staff, to ensure that we are not allowing just any individual or any entity or any potential virus or threats within our meeting. This has been an issue in some other communities and in entities during this time, so I think we want to take consideration when doing this. From there, the policy discusses how this would be utilized, much to the same as we have used our public hearing or open forum or ability to speak on agenda items during a council meeting, where staff would have received the information from those individuals. From there, we would essentially present the meeting, individual running the meeting, or the mayor, those commission presidents or chairs of those other boards and commissions, planning commission, EDA, our PAC, and they would just simply have those individuals where and just ask staff if there's individuals who would like to speak during the open forum. We would unmute that individual and allow them to speak for an open forum, or if there was a public hearing, the same rules would apply as are normal, that you would have that 3 minutes and just to conduct yourself in a professional manner. The other item would be that if we had individuals that wanted to speak on particular agenda items, we would run that the same, where they had an opportunity to speak on it prior to the presentation by staff of that agenda item to ensure any questions could be answered. That is, I think, a high level summation of the policy. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Okay, Member Zerwas, any questions?
Any questions I had have already been answered by Rob Linwood. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Member Yeager.
How firm is that having to sign up by 4 p.m. the day before?
I think that's what we utilize. Well, it's the day of the meeting, actually.
Oh, okay.
The day of the meeting. So that's just the intent is to give, obviously it was staff preparing of a meeting. We always have a staff meeting before that to make sure that we can get that reach out to that individual and get that information prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Member Schilling.
I actually have no questions. I think this covers everything.
All right, Member Luger.
I have no questions either. I think this is great.
I just have one question, actually, based off what Mr. Linwood said. So 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the day of the meeting, I do know that things can still get a little bit crazy, busy because it's end of day, that sort of thing. Do we want to maybe consider to move that up just a little bit, just to make sure, maybe cut off by noon, so there's time to get a hold of people and to prepare?
Sure. You know, I think when we originally allowed the public hearing, I definitely appreciate the thought on that, because sometimes you're completely right, between meetings and whatnot, it can be. But I think the 4 o'clock allows us enough time, even if it was unless it was just a string of them, where we would have the time to reach out to those individuals. Certainly, if we experience that is proving to be difficult, we would most likely ask council to maybe move that back to whether it's 2 o'clock or noon, per your thought. But I think we're comfortable with the 4 p.m. right now, but I definitely appreciate the thought.
Okay. And my last question would be in regards to the video portion of it. I just want to make sure that should it get passionate, the discussion get passionate, Mr. Linwood, you're able to on your end stop the video or mute the conversation, correct?
I think the intent is, and I don't anticipate that, obviously it is public comment and people are passionate, but I think it's our public meetings and open forums. I think that we lay out that expectation for the individuals that, they have to remain respectful, and this is, they have a set amount of time to speak to the council and state, the individual item they're speaking on, or if it's not something not on the agenda, or for the open forum for the council. So certainly if that were to become an issue, or there's profanity or rudeness, we would address that appropriately. But I think it'll be a great tool for the community to act responsibly and provide interaction with the council and our boards and commissions.
Agreed. All right. So if there are no further questions, we do need a motion to approve policy 20-03, policy for virtual city meetings and public participation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Member Luker makes the first. Do we have a second?
Member Schilling will second. Couldn't get my mute button to work.
Well, it always helps when we can all participate, that's for sure.
Right.
All right, so we have a first, we have a second, and roll call, please. Member Zerwas?
Aye.
Member Yeager?
Aye.
Member Schilling?
Aye.
And Member Luger?
Aye.
Mayor Iverson is a yes, it does pass. Number 19, to consider an addition of CARES Act payables agenda item at the special meeting on November 12th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Mr. Linwood, do you have a conversation on that?
Sure, I sure do. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This is just in follow-up to our special meeting we had last Wednesday. Staff had talked about that the CARES use dollars period is coming to an end on Sunday, November 15th. We did have multiple CARES items on this claims list for the council to review, but there are still a few items outstanding, including some purchases, and then our business and nonprofit grants. So we want to make sure that we can get those approved under that timeline. So we're asking the city council just to add a CARES claim list to that November 12th, 2020 meeting to be approved, just to ensure that we're abiding by the Treasury's guidelines for those dollars. So we just ask that you add that agenda item to that meeting on the 12th.
All right, so we need a motion to approve adding the addition of a CARES payable agenda item to the special meeting on November 12th, 2020 at 6 p.m., which is a virtual meeting, correct?
That is correct.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Schilling, so moved.
Member Schilling makes the first. Do we have a second?
Member Luger will second.
Member Luger makes that second. Via roll call, please. Member Zerwas?
Aye.
Member Yeager?
Aye.
Member Schilling?
Aye.
Member Luger?
Aye.
And Mayor Iverson is an aye. So we will be looking forward to that. And just real quickly, before we go to reports, I'm going to let Mr. Erickson and Chief Hoppy know that I'm going to be asking a question or an update on the Kettle River project, and 2, Chief Hoppy, on Halloween. Okay, all right. So let's start with Member Yeager.
I attended the special meeting on October 28th, and thank you all for watching, and that's my report.
All right, Member Schilling.
I also attended the special meeting, and I would actually like to give a big thanks to Rob, the staff, all of our election judges for getting through that election yesterday. I know it was a busy one, and from what I've seen, it was a record in a lot of places for turnout. So I really appreciate all your hard work, because I know that's an extremely long day, and it's a long several days in process of it and preparation. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and that is my report.
All right, Member Zierboss.
I attended the special council meeting on the 28th of October also, and that's my report.
All right, Member Luger.
I also attended the special meeting, and then the Park Advisory Commission met yesterday, and I attended that as well. The Park Advisory Commission continued to discuss the railroad plan master park engagement process. Unfortunately, and this was on the agenda earlier tonight, accepted the resignation of Sherry Christensen from the Park Advisory Commission. So we do have a seat that we are looking for community members who might want to join us. And then the Park Advisory Commission also discussed the Lions Park Memorial. And that is my report.
Awesome, thank you. I also attended the special meeting. I attended the PAC Advisory Commission as well, and the Planning Commission. And then I too would like to thank the election judges, Mr. Linwood, Ms. Dumas. It was a very, very long night for everybody, particularly Mr. Linwood and Ms. Dumas with that. And so just very proud of our city again. You guys do a great job, and our election judges do a great job. So we thank you for that. I do have to mention Councilmember Zierboss at the end of the year. You know, we all know he decided not to run again, and he'll be retiring, and just want to put that out there. It's been a joy to work with him, and the end of the year is going to be kind of sad. So thought I would throw that out there in case somebody didn't know that he is retiring. All right, so let's see. Let's go Chief Hoppy first. So Chief, I was reading on social media some very good engagements or engagement with our public and our kids on Halloween night. And I'm just wondering if you might want to share a couple of those just to highlight, you know, people were scared of COVID, but kids were out and having a lot of fun. And I believe several of our officers were also having fun. And you're in mute.
Yes, Halloween was certainly a different atmosphere this year than we've probably seen in the past. And, you know, we encouraged, one of the questions we got leading into the holiday was whether we were still gonna have the holiday. And our recommendation was to double mask, you know, COVID mask and your Halloween mask. And we saw a lot of people out and trying to enjoy it as much as they can. Officers got involved as much as they could in engaging with the kids and taking photos. But it was certainly good to see some bit of normalcy in 2020 and some engagement. So they did a really good job of getting out there, engaging the community and supporting them and seeing the community take some extra precautions and steps and be creative on how they stayed safe and still enjoyed the event.
Perfect, thank you. I know I had fun reading them, that's for sure. So, all right, and Mr. Erickson, I'm thinking we're almost done over in our 2020 project, correct?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we're fortunate to have this warm stretch of weather come back to Minnesota. So we finished the asphalt paving today on the remaining phase of the project, and there's going to be some kind of touch-up grading and seeding and hydro mulch placed on the remaining areas here this week. So yes, we are about wrapped up. We do have some minor punch list items that the contractor will be addressing. The project will not be final this year. It will carry into next spring to ensure that the seeding and everything comes back and grows. So with that, yeah, we've had a successful project. As you know, we do have an assessment hearing next council meeting. And but we have received a lot of positive feedback about the appearance and the quality of the project. So we're very pleased with the outcome.
Great. That was a big project. Correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like it went longer and more complicated than Pioneer and Goodview, right?
Yeah, it was. It's certainly more complicated when you have dense neighborhoods where you have a full reconstruction project. And so access in and out, a lot of coordination, but ultimately the project turned out quite well. And it certainly is an inconvenience for the residents. And so we certainly like to thank them for their patience as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. So if there isn't anything else, I'm looking at everybody just to do a quick look to see if anybody's raising their hand, or are we all just kind of ready to adjourn and call it a night? No, you guys all want to stay on. That's fine.
Oh, no,
So,
no.
no. All right. So we need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Members
Awesome.
Ross.
Thank you, Member Zerwas. And do we have a second?
Member Schilling will second.
All right, at the count of three, if you want to stay on, feel free, but otherwise in the count of three, let's all just say yes. 1, 2, 3, aye.
Aye.
Yes, aye.
All right, you guys have a great night. Stay safe, and we'll see you on the 12th.
Thank
Sweet.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.